Anywhere you go, you belong.
Resilience is a really big word.
It needs to be resilient to something, against something.
Looking at the architecture and the infrastructure side, and also looking at the inhabitants of the cities, so the communities ourselves, and how are we resilient, and how can we, if there are major issues coming in that might divide us, how can we come to terms, and how can we compromise? So yeah, that's what I would say, what I would define as resilient, and what hopefully people would consider in the future. The first thing that comes into my mind is definitely the sustainability of infrastructure, or the diversification of different modes of infrastructure. Just because physically that's what keeps the city afloat. A lot of people understand and feel the same way about climate change affecting cities, and whether or not cities are equipped to adapt and also to mitigate with the effects, and really kind of make sure that it's resilient in the sense that it would be good enough to sort of um, protect everyone from potential natural disasters coming in from climate change, for example. So sustainable infrastructure is something that comes into my mind first thing. Examples of this are vertical urban gardens. And what I mean by that is because of the lack of space for agricultural purposes in the city, but also at the same time, there's so many people coming into the city. How are we going to feed so many people, right? Like from vertical farming with that to grow food, and products or so, or both inside and outside of buildings, that might help improve the air quality, for example.
Resilience seems like it's being able to keep going despite adversity. And so if COVID is the adversity and London has kept going, I think there are some ways in which London has managed to do that quite well, and so other ways where it hasn't. And I think the ways in which it has been resilient, which aren't good, I don't know if it still counts as resilience, but like there have been things that have stayed open, and that in a way is resilience.
When you're coming into London, it's not necessarily you're stepping into a battlefield, but you are, because you've got competition everywhere. And what separates you from everybody else is your resilience, your effort, your drive.
I don't know, can resilience be a negative thing? Is that a case of resilience? Because you've got the rise of nationalism, the rise of the far right kind of throughout Europe, throughout the UK, and it feels like London is more left-leaning in general. And so I was going to be like, well, London's resilient to that, but I'm not sure we are. Because you've got, even within London, you've got far-right protests, you've got... So I don't know. Are we more resilient? Or are we just, about average resilience?
It's shown you how to look forward to things and plan ahead. But sometimes, because London's so on the go, like some people need to take a step back and think, right, okay, I need a breather. I can't keep going. And sometimes having too much resilience is what's going to hold you back up mentally. If your mental health is struggling, you ain't going to have the capacity to find the resilience to try and survive in London. London will put you through the test. Yeah, because there's different levels of resilience. Are you resilient in the working force? Are you resilient with the social aspects of it? Are you resilient with the community and what effect it has on your mental capacity? There's a lot of different levels of resilience.
When you ask about resilience, I was then like, well, resilient to what? And so the only thing I was like, what is attacking London? And I was trying to answer that, I guess, in more of an abstract sense, but the only answer I could come to was like the quite literal, the terrorist attacks that have happened in London not too long ago. There were terrorist attacks when there were the tube bombings, like the tube still carried on, like, so we're resilient to that, but I'm sure there's so much more that is less obviously attacking London.
It's resilient because it's able to respond quickly to things.
In a positive way, with like the with the lots of shops being cleaned much more thoroughly, with the transport systems being cleaned and being reduced. And yeah, I think that is a really good example of resilience, of recent resilience.
London could be quite resilient. For example, in my experience, lockdown is not finished yet, but I already had a few interviews in hair salons.
Mhm.
And for example, back in Italy, I know that people still struggle to find a job. So I would say that in an economic point of view, because London is big, is full of people, people wants to get back on normal life in this situation. I think that in an economic point of view, it could be more resilient, London.
London is probably the most diverse city, and Britain is probably the most resilient country in the world.
Londoners are very resilient.
I think in 10 years' time, we will get more resilient, but it doesn't mean that the obstacles cease to exist. I think the resilience will always still happen.
I reckon London is going to be more resilient. It's not especially thought through, but like it's going to have survived another 10 years. Since things are changing more quickly, the next 10 years are probably going to bring even more change and even more difficulty. So assuming we're all still going in 10 years' time, I reckon we'll be even more resilient.
So it's like your resilience in London definitely has to adapt with the way that London is basically coming up and changing.
Yeah.
So
Resilience in this way is definitely looking at the infrastructure, looking at ways in which is the infrastructure that we have, is that going to be enough to shelter us, for any natural disasters, coming, be it related to climate change or other things, and what are the options in really ensuring the sustainability of the materials used. So I would say that's definitely something that's I would say part of the resilience that I look into as part of the city. Another thing that I would also want to quickly mention is the resilience of the communities, because obviously when cities grow, there are definitely going to be opportunities and possibilities of communities becoming fragmented, people coming together, people coming apart, etc. So how do you sort of maintain the interaction that is, a peaceful interaction? And how can you maintain the resilience of the communities and not let it be affected by a conflict that has created division within society or something? How do you maintain, the interactions, and how can you make sure that the community is resilient for, other things coming in?
I would think that people are more resilient, and especially in terms of supporting each other. I've read a lot of articles where local restaurants would provide food for local communities, and even helping small businesses stay afloat who are affected the most by the lockdown and everything. Yeah.
People are very resilient, and it is kind of, what I do think? I think that London, when it comes down to it, London is one big community that can and will pull together its people.